Hello. Okay, this is week 5, and this is our dialogue for week 5, and I am going to be talking about some features whom I admire, and I have selected 3 of them to answer these questions. So the questions are from whom I continue to learn from and seek to emulate. What exactly do you admire about them? What specifically have you learned from their preaching? And how do you seek to emulate them in your own preaching? So I'm going to first start with my the person that I would want to emulate the most, that I admire the most for his preaching style, is one of the former deceased presiding bishops of my Reformation. His name is Bishop G.E. Patterson, and I often say that he is one of the greatest preachers that ever lived. Um, what I liked about him was that he introduced, like, for me, this idea that charisma doesn't just have to be fluff. And I like how he used the word to tell stories that were so relatable to the listener that you were able to sort of see yourself in the experience of another person. I think he has a way of making David and many of the folks in the Bible just come alive in a way that is just so difficult to deny. And there are times when people will mention people, and I'll reflect on messages that he or sermons that he preached that highlighted so many of the people in the Bible and their experiences. He also is a lover of the Old Testament, and I love the Old Testament. Um, I love the Old Testament stories. I love the richness, the deepness. I love the opportunity to study. And he was less interested in like catchy phrases and themes and subjects, more interested in the way that stories overlap with our daily context, and how we can become stronger in God by understanding the experiences of others and how God uses the experience of others in the Bible to encourage and to stimulate our activity every day. And so he was just a master at that from my perspective. The second was a preacher that I grew up with named Mac L. Walker. Um, Mac L. Walker is just a fantastic spiritual leader. He just a little guy from Arkansas. Well, he's not little, but he is a gentleman from Arkansas with a very thick accent. And just growing up, I grew up with him as my pastor in adolescence. And he just had a way of making the stories come alive. He is a carpenter by trade, and he really shaped his sermons and and the way that he ministers, and pastors and leads around this idea of, if you can get people to understand things in the same way that you build things and that you make things come to fruition, then you do a good job. And I just remember, just as a child, like all the demonstrations that he would make. He is one that believes in preaching through demonstration and manipulating just regular things to get you to think differently, reading texts differently, so that maybe um, the idea of like how comma changes a sentence is sort of a hybrid of both of the gentlemen that he served for many, many years as sort of the assistant pastor, associate pastor at the church that I currently attend. For the last 11 years, he has been the senior pastor, and in his mid 70s, decided to pursue theological education and to better himself and to become someone that was able to better reflect and share the word. And I just really appreciate the time that he spends in the word, in reflection. And even though there's sort of this push to be charismatic and loud, and especially sometimes in my context, like, he is always committed to if I have three takeaways that I want people to get, I'm going to make sure that people get that. I'm going to make sure that people walk away with it. The other thing that I love about him is that his reflection is just outstanding. In my early stages of my ministry, I would have a lot of some difficulty with naming sermons and even understanding the importance of doing that. And there have been a number of times when I've asked him, just from a creative perspective, how do you pursue God for this? Like, how do you open your mind and your heart and your spirit to hear what God is saying week in and week out about things that are important that He wants you to minister to others? And it would be just simple things. Like, we'd be driving down the street and he would make a reflection about a sign on the road, or make a connection between something that has been said, like just regularly, like with a open heart to the possibility of God speaking and Him saying something that can be delivered to others. And I've learned that, you know, about a ministry through him. How do I seek to emulate all of these individuals? With Bishop G.E. Patterson, like, I love storytelling. That's something that I learned, most especially how to do from listening to him every Sunday morning when he would come on television. Matthew Walker, like the importance of demonstrations and not being afraid to come off from behind the pulpit or the podium, and to really get in the face of the people and bring the sermon to life in different ways. And then certainly my current pastor, who's a hybrid of those things, and just learning mostly that the decency of preaching is not what we say, but how we live. And how we live has everything to do with the effectiveness of preaching. And I learned that the most from my current pastor, Benio Tolliver. So hopefully this suffices for this week's assignment, and I thank you for listening.